All right, so our topic this term is going to be anatomy of the musculoskeletal system. All right, and so I will talk a little bit. Today my goal is to do probably too much, but it's to introduce you to what the goals of the course are going to be. And once we do a little bit of what the course will look like, then I want us to stand back and take a big picture look. We're actually going to watch a video from the TED Talks conference with a gentleman who talks about education and creativity. And so kind of stand back for a second and take a big look and say, why are we doing this? Why are we here? How can we best learn and be engaged with the material? And then afterwards, we'll talk a little bit about a system for us to communicate how we learn and teach differently. And we'll talk about that in light of something called True Colors. Okay, so we have a lot of things to do, but we'll start off kind of giving you the premise of the class, and we'll move on from there. All right. So the goal of our class is to become familiar with the human anatomy, specifically of the extremities, arms and legs, the back, and the neck. That's the area we're going to focus on the most, whereas next term we'll focus more on the core and on the head, because we'll talk about the brain and we'll talk about internal organ systems, okay? So really it's more extremities, back, and neck. And what I care about most when you are gathering knowledge is you have some kind of a context for your knowledge. I was never really a fan of learning information, writing it down, and forgetting it because I had no context for it. So that will be one of the bigger parts of our course. I also would like to provide a forum for you to create your own personal resource guide, something that you can look to later. Many of you, as we'll discuss, have aspirations of going on in fields that are related to this topic, whether that be a healthcare-related field or a graduate school research-related field, but a lot of you, you're not just learning about the body for fun and then you're not going to use it anymore. And the nice thing about this resource guide that you're creating is you can hang on to it. And I actually love when people who have finished this program and moved on will email me and say, you know, I'm in my second year of med school and I'm still using the resource guide, what we call our external brain, that I created in this class. And that to me means that it was authentic and useful. So that's the goal, is for you to create that this term. All right, and then lastly, I want to have fun because I'm going to be here twice a week, and I'm hoping that you are interested in that as well. And so I want us to have fun, and we're going to learn about the body in this clinical context. Okay, so a place that we can apply it that isn't just memorizing information for the sake of the test, but for us to have some real context and application that we can use it for. So how are we going to do that? Let's get a little glimpse at what this might look like. Here's a clinical context for you. A 25-year-old soccer player presents with knee pain and weakness in their leg and ankle. They sustained a contusion on the inferior and lateral side of their ipsilateral knee, but have no recollection of trauma to their foot and ankle. Okay, so there's a clinical scenario that, yes, you will be able to completely tackle by the end of the class. So, in order to get started, if that's our goal, that you can take a scenario like that and you can apply your knowledge to work this out, what do you need? How do you get started? What kind of information is going to be important? I want you to talk to whoever's sitting around you, introduce yourself, say hi, and then talk about how would you even begin to tackle something like this. I'll show it to you again so you can look at it while you're talking about it. There's still a... Hi, there's another seat in the front if you're coming to join us. It's on the far side. You can see there's like 3 people in a row and there's one seat on the other side of them. The very, very front. Yeah. It's easier to see from the front. What's that? Loud. I know. Isn't that great? Okay, guys, let's come on back. Let's come on back. All right, so I'm curious to hear some of your conversations, but this is a good opportunity for me to introduce the TV set. On the TV set right here, we have, I believe, 6, but now I have to count. Maybe there's more now. Looks like I see 7 people sitting, so 7 students in Bend. Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, right now, yeah.
Cool. Cool, and actually I'm going to turn them up just a touch so I can hear them a bit better. But I have to learn not to change the channel when I do that. So, sitting in Bend, I know you guys are jealous, right? How many people here are like, oh, they're in Bend and they can go skiing when I can't? Yeah, I'm jealous, I know. So we have some students in Bend that join us, and we've been doing that every year for the last 5 years. This is the 6th year, actually, the whole time I've been teaching anatomy here. And so I'm going to go back and forth between asking questions of students in Bend. Sometimes you can hear some of what they say, but sometimes you can't, the same way that if someone in the back talks, someone over here can't hear. So I'll do a lot of repeating what you've said so that everybody can hear, whether you're in Eugene or in Bend. Okay, but welcome, Bend students. I hope you guys are comfortable. I'm seeing waving, thank you. And I am hoping, we'll talk more afterwards, but if it's possible, guys from Bend, if you can not take off right away, right after class, it'd be great if we can just, if it's quiet enough in here, try to talk for a sec. If not, Sarah and I are trying to work out a time on Friday to make that work. Is that right, Sarah, still? Are we working on that? Okay, cool. All right, so let's start with you guys in Bend. What was something that when you saw this kind of scenario, what was one of the things you figured you're going to need to get started? What's some kind of information you're going to need? You got it, basic terminology, right? Did anyone come up with that? That there's some terminology in there that not so much, right? Okay, so yeah. So we need to learn a bit of a new language. And in a lot of ways, anatomy is a language, right? It's the same way that if I went into an art history class or if I went into some kind of history class, there's going to be some terminology that I wouldn't be familiar with and I would have to grow with. So that's the first thing we need is to know we got a bunch of terms like ipsilateral and inferior, lateral. They're just telling you directions onto the body. It's like driving directions on where you're going, but we need to learn that. What else do you need to know? Someone from anywhere, Eugene, Bend, just shout it out.
How do the knee and the ankle relate to each other?
Nice. How are the knee and the ankle related? Here we have a situation where we're talking about one and the other, so you need to understand what's the connection between those. Is it tissues that connect from one to the other? Is it muscles, ligaments, nerves, bone? Why would these two things be related in the same injury with pain and contusion? Great. What else do we need to know? Yeah.
Had this injury without any recollection of trauma.
Okay, so maybe like dig a little deeper on, yeah, like what could have happened here. You know, basically get a sense of how does the body work. How would it move? If it ended up getting hurt a certain way, you'll start to know what does it do naturally and what kind of movements would not be natural and therefore could cause injury. Okay, so you have to dig a little deeper on what could have happened. What other types of things? Yep.
What types of ligament that could have been torn, and if you're able to play for the game? play the game?
Sure. So the first thing is the anatomy part is that if you can understand what is located there, so if you can say, oh, I know there's a ligament right here, and it's supposed to do this job, they could have injured that. So you need to know the first part, which is what's there. And then the second follow-up part, which I promise I won't ask you guys to decide, is whether or not this person can keep playing in the game. Now, if you continued in a certain career path, you would be in a point where you would need to make that decision, right? There's physicians that make those decisions. There's athletic trainers that make those decisions. But for you guys, I just want you to get to the point where you can explain to me what's happening with the body, okay? All right, anything else? Any other piece of information? Sorry? A history of injuries, sure. Sometimes that would really help, right? And obviously when we're in a big class environment like this and we're trying to communicate, I try to keep things simple to the point that, you know, we can't have a lot of guesswork about, well, they could have had this list of 10 injuries in their previous history, which means that now they've got this and this. So we'll keep things more simple and straightforward. But in the real world, we often do have to consider what else has gone on with this person and what are their predisposing injuries, that type of thing. Okay, you guys have got a good list. One more.
What movements are causing them pain?
Excellent. What movements are causing them pain? So first you have to know what movements the body does at each joint, and then you can actually ask them to go through those movements and tell you about their experience. That's something we're going to do a lot of, actually.